Hey there, how's it going? Do you like classic fairy tales? How about when they're jazzed up with a bit of darkness and griminess and grit and mashed together in the same universe? How about if it's also presented as an interactive story? Does all this sound good? Well, I hope it does, because today I'll be reviewing a little title called The Wolf Among Us, which I personally believe to be the best thing to ever come out of the now extinct Telltale Studios. But that's a topic for another day. So, without further ado, let's get on to the review. For the sake of simplicity, I've split this review into two easily digestible parts. Things I liked about the game, and things I didn't. Cool, right? Very simple. Alright, let's start with the positive aspects of The Wolf Among Us. And since this isn't really a game, but more of an interactive story, there's really only one thing to enjoy. And guess what? You've guessed it. The narrative. Which, quite frankly, is fantastic. And let's face it, in a game like this, it pretty much had to be, or I doubt anybody would have bothered playing it at all, okay? The source material for the game is a series of comic books appropriately titled Fables. And this rich source material is precisely the reason why The Wolf Among Us is so successful. We play as a grizzled detective with a troubled past named Bigby, which of course is short for Big Bad Wolf.
Never mind.
And yes, it's exactly that Big Bad Wolf that you're thinking of. His arch nemesis is the woodsman from Little Red Riding Hood.
Not how it went last time.
This isn't last time.
He smokes Huff and Puff brand cigarettes. And one of the three little pigs crash at his apartment on account of blowing his house down. Pretty funny stuff. Anyway, we learn that Bigby struggles, quite literally, with the animal inside him, but genuinely wants to reform, a task he hopes to accomplish by becoming the sheriff of Fabletown. This game is populated with a plethora of familiar faces, such as Beauty and the Beast,
What's going on?
Snow White, Ichabod Crane, and even Bloody Mary,
I can't.
who serves as one of the game's primary antagonists. It's a pretty cool experience to see this world's interpretation of our beloved childhood icons, and for me, it became one of the primary reasons to keep playing.
I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be me.
Without spoiling too much, here's a brief synopsis of the plot. Some fable ladies turned prostitutes begin dying, and it's up to Bigby to figure out who the culprit is and why the murders are happening. There's a lot of twists and turns, and of course a few red herrings to keep things exciting. At its core, The Wolf Among Us is a detective story. Who is murdering these women? And what's the motivation? Is there something bigger going on here? And who and where can Bigby turn to for answers? The story is very strong, except perhaps in the fourth act, where the pacing slows to a crawl and barely anything happens at all. And it kept me entertained for my roughly 6-hour-long playthrough. Even if you're usually not into the murder mystery genre, which I'm really not, the whole fairy tale fable thing it's got going on was more than enough to keep me hooked until the finale. Alright then, moving on to the stuff I didn't like about the game. And I feel like I should put a little disclaimer here that none of these negatives are specific to The Wolf Among Us, but rather you could say this about any of the Telltale games. Okay? Disclaimer over. First and foremost, there isn't any gameplay, unless you count clicking on clues, making dialogue choices, or occasionally walking small distances. The fact is, this isn't really a game. It's a visual novel masquerading as a game. Also, all of the action is just a bunch of boring-ass quick-time events. Which, you know, when a quick-time event shows up in a game, it's almost never a good thing. And since 100% of the action is quick-time events, well, I'll just leave it at that. In fact, the game is so devoid of gameplay that instead of playing the final episode, I just watched it on YouTube and it made no difference whatsoever. I shit you not, I did not miss out on anything. Secondly, the choices you make don't impact the story at all. Despite what Telltale would have you believe, this is not, I repeat, not a choose-your-own-adventure story. At most, your choices affect a superficial dialogue line here and there, and this is perhaps the biggest failing of all Telltale games. They advertised that you could replay it multiple times and get different experiences, and your choices matter. I mean, it's even up in the little corner. It says, you know, your choices matter, blah, blah, blah. But that simply isn't the case. That's not how these games are designed. And lastly, I really hated the fact that I couldn't skip the recap cutscene before each episode. I mean, they had to have known at some point all of the episodes would be completed, and the recaps would become superfluous, so forcing us to sit through a few minutes of bullshit that we just played through is not only incredibly annoying, it's just fucking stupid. I can't believe there was no option to skip these scenes. It was just a huge oversight, and incredibly annoying. The Wolf Among Us sports a superb story in an intriguing setting, and seeing new takes on familiar Fable characters is a delight. However, the absence of any meaningful gameplay makes the experience a bit less fun than your average video game. Couple this with the fact that the player choices have no bearing on the story, makes it hard for me to call this a game at all. However, if you can get past its shortcomings, you're in for a wonderful detective story that'll keep you guessing until the end. That's why I'm giving The Wolf Among Us a final score of 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching.